Good morning, everyone. I'm Kishau Rogers, the founder and CEO of Time Study, and I'm so happy to join you today on the final day of Full Steam Ahead. I hope that you've enjoyed your time so far, and I hope that you're excited about the many new activities that are in store for you today. Before we get started, I know that you've already been exposed to so many new ideas and emerging technologies. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes with you today to talk about the future of working in technology, specifically in the field of artificial intelligence. So today's presentation will be called New Rules for Solving the World's Biggest Problems with AI. And it's inspired by events both real and imaginary. So just give me maybe 10 seconds to share my screen and then we can get started. So before I get started and get too deep into this presentation, I should probably introduce myself. And I'll start with a fun fact. During the pandemic, I actually spent some time, a few weeks, rewatching all of Marvel's movies in timeline order. It's very interesting to watch everything go down in timeline order. And I learned a lot. And also, this presentation is largely inspired by Marvel superheroes because it's still on my brain. Also, I'm a mom. I have kids here in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a Virginian. Originally, I was born and raised in Virginia, and I'm a graduate of VCU. I'm a three-time entrepreneur. Time Studies my third company, and I specialize in using computer science and systems thinking to solve the world's biggest problems. I'm the person that people normally call to wrangle chaos and complexity and to understand complex landscapes. I'm also the person to make Lego building not so fun because I organize them by size and color. And just a little bit more about my work. I mentioned that I'm the founder of Time Study. Time Study is a software platform that allows hospitals to understand how people spend their time at work. And we do that through the use of data, both structured, like typical data, but also unstructured data, like voice notes and images and videos. We can take this data and construct a story of how a person spends their time at work, and most importantly, we can provide hospital leaders with the story of how that impacts that person, how it impacts the people that that person serves, and most importantly, how does it impact the quality of the work that they do? So that's Time Study. Before Time Study, I started two companies. My first company was a software engineering firm called WebSmith, and we spent many years delivering software solutions to some of the world's biggest companies. Time Study is headquartered in New York, and we're already serving some of the largest hospitals in the United States. Also, as the founder and CEO of Time Study, I've been able to become the first Black woman to raise over $1 million in venture funds. I should say one of the first, because more and more people are raising over $1 million in venture funds to scale their top startups every day. That's really exciting. If you want to know more about my work, you can visit Kishaw.com. That's my first name, Kishau, and you can learn a lot more about my work or read about the press. So let's get started. I think we should start with a definition of artificial intelligence, because if you ask 10 people to define it, you're probably going to get 10 different definitions, unfortunately. So what you're seeing here are who the men that are recognized as some of the founders of artificial intelligence. In 1955, they used the term artificial intelligence in a proposal for a conference that was held in 1956. It was the first conference involving artificial intelligence and also the first time that the term was used. So today, our working definition of artificial intelligence is that it is the ability of a machine or a computer program to think and learn. That's simply what it is. The concept is based on the idea that machines can learn how to act like humans and can actually perform actions as a human would. What makes AI different from your traditional software programs is that artificially intelligent systems can actually learn and act on what they've learned, and they're not based on pre-programmed rules and responses. So that's the difference between your traditional software and artificial intelligence. So now that we've defined what artificial intelligence is, let's talk about the 6 major reasons, the goals for using AI. Some of these you may be familiar with. Like the first goal for most intelligence systems is searching and planning. And if some of you may have heard of automated vehicles like Tesla, unmanned vehicles, as well as systems that play games autonomously. These are intelligent systems that are able to synthesize a plan to reach a desired goal. And so the second reason for using or having an intelligent system is what we call knowledge engineering and knowledge representation. So these are machines that are able to take real world information, transform it, and present it in a way that the computer can use to perform complex tasks. So that was a mouthful, but you could think of things like medical diagnosis, a system that would automatically provide a medical diagnosis, giving the data that it has access to, the real world data. And that could include data that's in a health record, or it may include like data that they get from your Fitbit or your Apple Watch. Next are systems that specialize in perceptions. And some systems may have 1 or 2 goals in place. So keep that in mind that not every system only has 1 goal. So perceptions, these are intelligent systems that are able to reproduce human vision, touch, and hearing. An example of that, if you know anyone with a cell phone, then you know that we can now open our phones with facial recognition technology. There's also speech recognition technology as well. And so systems that can take facial data or data that you see, data that you hear, and reproduce and make sense of it. The next goal are intelligent robots. So as I've intentionally used the word intelligence because there's robotics, and some robots are not necessarily intelligent. Remember before I defined artificial intelligence and the difference between pre-programmed systems is that those systems have pre-programmed rules and behaviors. Intelligent robots can perform autonomously. So they can learn from the environment and the data that they have access to, and they can manipulate objects and carry out complex tasks. So an example of that are drones that move autonomously. Perhaps there's a drone that can navigate a city and know when it's time to go get more battery, to get the battery recharged. That's a system that is intelligent. Number 5, natural language processing. And this is often used in combination with some of these other goals. But these are systems that specialize in understanding human language. If you've ever used a phone, you may have spoken to Siri or Alexa or Cortana or some of these voice assistants that it helps make sense of our request, and it performs an action based on that request. And then finally, machine learning. Machine learning is the ability of a machine to learn by experience using the data that it has access to. A really popular example, and one that we often forget about because a lot has changed over the years, are email systems that can identify if an email is spam or not spam. That's a system that is using the data that's available to it to define what a spam email looks like. So now let's take some time to discuss the future of work. This is for people that are interested in using artificial intelligence to solve problems. And so at Time Study, we actually use cross-disciplinary teams to deliver intelligent solutions to our customers. And so that team may include people that aren't necessarily engineers. It certainly includes engineers and data scientists, but it also includes subject matter experts and people that understand and or represent the community of people that we are attempting to impact with our technology. So with our company, that includes people that have a clinical background because a lot of people that use our software are physicians or nurses. So we have them on the team with the engineers and data scientists and many other disciplines, people that have many other gifts and talents. I believe that the future requires that we broaden our definition of who gets to be an AI engineer because it's going to involve so much more than math, science, and programming. Certainly that's the fun part, but there are other skills that are now required in order to work on an AI team. And some of these skills, like maybe you're interested in working in AI, but you're also interested in other subjects. And you may not realize that those skills are also important, even on an artificial intelligence project. So I've identified 9 key team members that are necessary for professionals that are interested in working in this space and solving some of the world's biggest problems in the future. While you may possess more than one of these characteristics identified in each example, let's just think of this as a team effort. And remember that your role can change and you can always change your mind. So here are the 9 types of people needed on your team, or the 9 heroes that are needed for the future of work. So the first team member is the innovators, or I should say the first team members are the innovators. These are the people on your team that imagine new ways of getting things done. So this one is represented by a character called Iron Man, and the person behind that character, his name is Tony Stark. He spends his days thinking of creative products and solutions to doing things, new methods, new ways of getting things done. These are the types of people that actually embrace and crave change, the people with the big idea. In the future, the opportunity and the types of roles that you may see for innovators are on the team. They uncover opportunities to amplify human effectiveness. So instead of fearing technology taking jobs, these are people that think of ideas for using technology to actually create new jobs. And so perhaps they're automating mundane or dangerous tasks, or reducing errors, which frees humans up to do new and creative things, to have new jobs to do. The types of roles or job titles that you may see in this space are like innovation officers, change agents, innovation engineers. These are the people that facilitate change and move us forward. Next, we have master builders. So this one is demonstrated by Shuri from Black Panther. You may or may not have seen the movie, but she's the person that always created the new tools. She had a deep understanding of engineering tools and an expert level of knowledge that allowed her to actually execute. Master builders create and master engineering tools. And in the future, these will be, the engineers will actually create new tools that allow us to develop solutions quicker and increase efficiency, even coding efficiency, and the efficiency for maintaining code bases that are becoming more complicated, but as well as monitoring. So they have time now, because we can actually build things faster to actually create new and better tools. You may be aware that there are some AI assisted software development tools that can actually reduce the number of keys that a developer has to press by 50%. These are the types of things that people that are master builders will be working on. Some of the roles on the team or titles are software, hardware engineers, as well as algorithm engineers, people that specialize in engineering algorithms. Next, we have data people. So the first 3 on the list are very, very common. I'm sure you expected to see innovators, engineers, and data people. This is represented by Vision from Avengers. And Vision is actually not a person, but a robot, but he's able to actually contextualize data in ways that most of our robots, none of our robots today can do. Data people can bring the data to life by contextualizing the data and creating stories that are actually accurate. So the data people on the team are gifted in helping you determine what questions can the machine answer with this data that you're using. They're also able to determine any underlying structures, rules, or governance, privacy rules, and regulations that may influence your ability to use the data in the way that you want to use it. You may not be aware of this, but like most of the data that we have, 90%, it's estimated that 90% of the world's data has actually been created in the past 2 to 3 years. A lot of that is because of the velocity in which we're collecting and sharing our data, particularly on social media and through our cell phones. So data people help you understand whether or not you can actually use that data. The roles and titles that you see in this space are, your subject matter experts. These are people that actually understand the data from a subject matter perspective. So if it's a system that is going to determine who gets a bank loan, these are finance people because they understand finance. Also, we have data scientists and data analysts as well. Next up, we have number 4, empaths. I'm going to call these people. So these are people that are very in tune with the people on the team or the people that you serve, the people that you're impacting. So empaths offer you human-centered leadership. So this one is actually represented by Professor X from X-Men. He has a ton of other gifts and talents, but the thing that makes him different than from other people with the same gifts and talents was his ability to connect to the people that he was leading and to understand human and sometimes not human behavior. So the strengths of the empaths on your team is that they can determine methods for improving algorithms to better understand emotional nuances. So I mentioned earlier the complexity of offering a facial recognition system or vocal recognition systems, particularly for security, is that the system needs the ability to understand the nuances of the human face, human facial expressions, and how humans express emotions through their tone of voice. This where it's needed on teams. So in the future, where AI, this person would help you to determine where AI empathy is needed. Especially given that a lot of these systems have an increasing role in our daily lives. Some of the common roles and titles that you see here are, certainly your executives and team leaders, but also behavioral specialties, behavioral scientists, and a new term, empathologists. I don't even know if that's a legitimate term yet, but those are people that specialize in understanding human emotion. That we'll see a lot more of these types of people on AI teams. Next, we have number 5, the time travelers. This one is represented by Doctor Strange, who through Avengers and the Doctor Strange movies had possession of what they call the time stone. This is a person that could travel through time and space and understand all of the information that was relevant to whatever they were trying to do. He had other strengths, but intelligence and being able to analyze a complex landscape, complex information, and also to communicate what that information means across time and space. Everything is changing so rapidly that it's not enough to have a data set and understand the field names and the values and what they mean. You actually have to understand the environmental context that created that data set to help you actually understand what to do with it. So in the future, these people can help predict, but also provide adequate and accurate insights given the environment that you're working in. They can help you identify boundaries and variables that can be controlled or influenced. And these all help enable your roadmaps and help you to predict what to do next. Some of the common titles that you see here are data scientists, data historians. If you've ever heard of 23andMe and Ancestry.com, there are tons of sites that specialize in using DNA data and other census data and old records to help people uncover their historical footprint on the planet. We'll see more of that, as well as subject matter experts. Today, we have a lot of data. I mentioned Ancestry.com, like census records and things like that. We still need genealogists to help us make sense of it. We still need people that understood the location that you're researching to help you actually make sense of what you're seeing. So time travelers help you actually contextualize data. And in the future, there'll be a whole field and discipline of people that create new ways of contextualizing data autonomously. Next, number 6. Number 6 are strategists. This one is represented by Loki. Sometimes Loki seems like a villain. Sometimes he's a hero. It all depends on his intention and what his goals are. But he always seems to be 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Strategists are important. Intention is more important, but strategists are really important. And their strength is that in a complex and quickly evolving landscape, a person that's a great strategist can define the next best step to reaching the goal. Where they'll become important in the future is they help you understand how to navigate the quickly evolving landscape of artificial intelligence. And most importantly, when and where to use the tool. Where does it have the most impact? Because they're always aware of the next step towards reaching the goal. Some of the roles that you'll see on the team are these are the people that can help you create product roadmaps. AI ethics is a field that's really important, and often it requires a strategist to help understand how to ensure that we are handling data ethically. It requires a person to really think through all of the different things and the different pathways that can allow companies to not be ethical. So strategists can be very useful. Next, we have number 7. Number 7, this is a group that I refer to as Earth people. I couldn't think of another term, but these are people that really have an intimate connection to the environment. They offer environmental intelligence. This one is demonstrated by the character Storm from the Avengers series. Storm had an ability, a connection to the environment to the degree that she could create change in the environment. These people, their strength is that they have an intimate awareness of the technology and its impact on the environment and the planet. That's becoming increasingly more important. You make another fun fact that you probably don't know is that Google, just to give you a small example, Google has a chat bot that actually consumes 96 tons of carbon dioxide, and this is equivalent or about the same of what it takes to power more than 17 homes in a year. That's just one little chat bot. Imagine all of the chat bots and all of the AI systems and what it takes to keep them running and consuming data and acting on that data. So these people actually help you uncover ideas for green AI while constantly monitoring its impact on the planet. Some of the roles and titles that you'll see in this space are environmental engineers, scientists, researchers, depending on what part of the environment you care about. Next up is number 8. Number 8 are people that are very agile. Again, I couldn't think of a fancy term for them, so I'm calling them agile people. You probably are too young to know this, but a long time ago, Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, once stated that his company liked to move fast and break things. That was a philosophy that they had to innovation. He since changed that. Now we're all agreeing that it's good to move fast, but we shouldn't break things. So agile people are masters of being agile and flexible in a rapidly changing environment without risking human safety, security, and privacy. This one is demonstrated by our friendly neighborhood hero, Spider-Man. Spider-Man is able to know when to take the next move without hurting anyone. He's flying through the city, he's moving really quickly, but he's also not harming anyone in the process. So these people can be helpful in the future for sandbox development. One of the important characteristics of moving quickly is that you understand your environment, which means that you've spent enough time in a similar environment so that you can learn how the environment behaves. So having more sandboxes to play with data and to test out new ideas is important. So people that build infrastructure for that and to create new testing procedures so that you can test very early and more often and continuously, that's a great role for the future. Some of the titles that you'll see here are AI DevOps. We have people that specialize in development operations. That is what the team does to keep your solutions up and running, how we keep the lights on and the hamsters moving. So these people will specialize in AI as it pertains to DevOps, as well as data operations and pipelines for moving data from the source into whatever data sandbox you need to train your algorithms, as well as QA and quality control, quality assurance, and quality control engineers as well. And finally, we have a very underestimated type of role. Number 9 is a group that I'm going to call world builders. This one is represented by the character Scarlet Witch. You may or may not have seen WandaVision on Disney Plus, but this character was also in the Avengers, and she has a lot of talent. But one of the things that she's really good at is creating new worlds and altering reality. Not necessarily altering reality is a thing that we necessarily want to do. I think we have enough of that. But people that can take an idea and make the imaginary real. So the strength of a world builder is that they have such a fine attention to detail that they understand all of the elements and details that are needed to make a bold idea real and to design the realistic, compelling interface. So these are people in the future that in very vivid detail will be able to define the landscape, the rules, behaviors, and all of the elements that govern the futures that you're trying to create. Some of the roles that you'll see that you don't commonly see on AI teams, but we'll see a lot more of are art directors, movement engineers, particularly in the robotics space, user experience and user interface engineers, 3D artists, people that specialize in prototyping. These are world builders, and that's the final member of the team. So in conclusion, the best AI projects, in my experience, include people that represent each of the characteristics mentioned. When there's a lack of diversity, important risks are often missed until it's too late. So, if you're interested in having a career in artificial intelligence, remember to actively discover your strengths. Perhaps you can start with the superhero character that most resonated with you. My personal favorite is Professor X. Remember to use your strengths for the greater good. I mentioned that many of these characters have great capacity to do good, but they also can do evil, and it's all depending on your intention. That's why it's so important to have success metrics that are human centered. This allows you to better understand where AI is useful and where it is not needed. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your conference. If you want more information about my work or if you have questions, feel free to visit Kishau.com. Have a great rest of your summer.